today we're going to talk about something that is completely new to me as well. So I will learn together with you. We're going to connect again psychology with naturopathy, and we're going to talk about the trauma in the womb. So the trauma that is specifically completely different kind of trauma. So I have here with me Jennifer. Jennifer is a naturopath. So Jennifer, over to you. Quick intro, because I know you will do it better than I would do.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Jennifer Eisenecker. I'm from Germany. I'm a naturopath, but it's my second career. I actually used to be in banking, but that did not fulfill my passion. So as a teenager, I wanted to study medicine, but yeah, there were reasons why I could not pursue that. So back to like my original plan, I went back to Germany and studied naturopathy, got my degree, came back to Singapore. And yeah, I have my brand Panacea, so I make products, holistic health, of premium quality. And I work a lot with women, lots of trauma background, and I basically look at the body from a trauma perspective. So that's a little different as a normal naturopath would do. Usually naturopaths, they just use like herbs, plants, nutrition, lifestyle. Work a lot with supplements. Supplements is something I rarely use, so it's only in very specific situations, but it's not like my go-to remedy. I work a lot with the body. So first thing is that I'm very intuitive and I work with the hands a lot. So yeah, but maybe just a few words about yourself as well, Beata. Like
okay,
maybe.
I don't work with my hands, but I move my hands a lot. So yeah, psychologist and life coach, making psychology practical and making sure that we all know how to feel our emotions so we can heal and be happy with our life. So we can create the life worth living and worth waking up in the morning, so that when we wake up, when we open our eyes, we feel like, it's going to be cool. I'm curious what this day going to bring up, right? And I'm really, like, I couldn't disconnect psychology from how we feel in our body. So for me, the connection between body and mind is really important. And I recently started, because I am so much into emotions, confidence, self-beliefs. I started to work on trauma recently. So trauma was something that I've been interested like for the last few years, but only recently I accepted a few clients with trauma, or naturally it happened that we discovered that there is a trauma when we were working. And then as soon as I was like, okay, so now trauma. And I had to kind of like take a step back from my training as a clinical psychologist. You have a label here, trauma. This is how you need to proceed, right? These are the next steps. I'm like, oh, no. Let's look at it, what it is, how it represents, what we can do to really heal. So to look at this holistically, not only from the one perception and the one view. So that's why I wanted to, for us to chat about trauma in general and in terms of the specific trauma in the womb. Because that's something that is, even though I've read about it, I've learned about it, it's still, even when I think about it, I feel like it's a bit kind of like new and unknown. So please tell me what should we know? How does it appear, or how you recognize it?
Yeah. So maybe a start of how the whole thing came to me. So this topic was not something I was actively pursuing. So just when I started out in my practice, I realized, wow, like I work very intuitively with my hands. And then most of the patients were women. And I was always drawn to the uterus. And I realized, wow, all of these, they have like something to do in the uterus. And I quite quickly realized, wow, like my hands are drawn to the uterus, but she came for a migraine. But by working on the uterus, the migraine got better. So that kind of struck me. And I realized how important the uterus is for us women. So in my intake form, I will have a lot of questions, for example, about the menstrual cycle, or since lots of women come to see me also for like natural fertility or repeat pregnancy loss, or to get over the pregnancy loss. Yeah, it's such an important topic. And I realized as well, for example, for women who are trying to conceive, and that's usually a very intense time, like especially when you start to go for IVF, the hormones alone are enough to mess you up. So it's a very emotional, like always very frustrating, full of hopes and frustrated again. So it's quite an intense, and it also brings you really down to the essence of who you are as a woman, because often, I mean, I work with women who are from maybe more conservative cultures, families, so their expectations or the expectations of the family is often like the only thing I'm supposed to do is to give birth to a son. So, and I can't even do that. Like, what kind of woman am I? So we work on that, and a lot has to do with how a woman feels as a woman. What's the image of a woman you developed when you grew up? Like, what was your family's or your mother's reaction when you got your first period? Like, was this something that was celebrated, or was it something like, oh gosh, you know, yeah, now you'll have to suffer too? And is it something that is, yeah, what's the association with these things? Or like when you get your period, is it something that you feel like, oh, there we go again, like the suffering is coming, the cramps, the pain, the fatigue, the bloatedness, no energy? Or is it something, oh, I'm fertile, like, you know, this is my body and my body's beautiful and I just rest now because my body is working really hard now. So it's very different. The image that we have is so important. And I realized in my practice that even like women sometimes can get pregnant very quickly if we just work on the trauma in the uterus. So I've literally had sessions when, for example, she had a miscarriage or even an abortion before, like some kind of pregnancy loss. And if we work on letting that trauma in the uterus go, often, like, you know, like maybe there's still this attachment to that spirit. So literally the woman feels so attached to this baby that it hasn't really gone up yet. It's still somehow connected. So there is no space for another one. So if we help her in a healthy way to let go, to keep the memory, but to let go of the pain, all of a sudden, you know, even in a session, sometimes the ovaries start to glow, or this gray, gooey kind of feeling starts to lift and the whole room becomes sparkly. So this is now a bit like more alternative stuff. Obviously, this is not like mainstream treatments, but this is what's happening. And often when we let that go, it's not uncommon for me that a patient tells me, Jennifer, guess what? I'm pregnant. Like, it happens, I don't want to say all the time, but maybe every 4 to 6 weeks, someone tells me I'm pregnant. And that can literally even happen after just one session. Like literally we let go of the trauma. And I've had patients who got pregnant the next day or the same day. Like, and that was after years of trying. So it's quite, you know, this trauma in the uterus thing for me, this is so powerful. And symptoms that you have trauma in the uterus can be your menstrual cycle is messed up. So which means your menses is painful, it's unpleasant, you're tired, you can't, I mean, it's normal to be tired as well. Yeah, the body wants us to rest, and it's a time for us to rest, like as it was in the old days, but it's nothing dirty. It's nothing that a woman should be ashamed of. So anything around your menstrual cycle, or did you feel very hormonal, or did you feel like I feel horrible around like my ovulation or my and like when I get my period? These are all signs there is something not quite right. Also, if you have all kinds of things growing that shouldn't be growing there, or you have endometriosis, PCOS, lots of things can actually be influenced again by the diet that we spoke about in the other video. Like these are really important things, what we eat to balance out hormones, but also stress management, things like that, just as a side note. And then of course, if you look at what's your relationship with your own mother, like that is quite a big one, and it's a topic for many women where it's a tricky one. So many of us, we don't have a good relationship with her, or maybe now it's better than it was before. And if you don't have a good relationship to your mom, and no matter what happened, that you need to somehow make peace with it. And it doesn't mean that like everything gets forgotten. No, it's okay. You know, you can, I mean, this is more your side, Beata. I mean, I don't want to talk too much about it, but fix the relationship to your mom. This is really important. Next thing, trauma in the uterus. Like if you find yourself repeatedly in unhealthy romantic relationships, whether these are sexual relationships, romantic relationships, but if you find yourself always going for I would say like abusive men, or like the tough guys, and you want to fix them, or where you look for something, not just will blend maybe also more with your work, Beata, but these like unhealthy behaviors around the being of a woman. If you don't feel great as a woman, if you're not really, oh my God, this is so amazing to be a woman, if you feel like it sucks to be a woman and it's terrible and it's awful and I wish I will have a son and not a daughter, likely have trauma in the uterus. The next thing is, if you know there was abuse, any kind really of abuse towards either your mother while she was pregnant, while you were young, if you witnessed domestic violence, if your mother, your grandmother, especially in the maternal line, they experienced violence, war, rape, marriage, all this kind of sex work. I mean, especially, in Asian society here, these are often taboos. So we can only suspect, or we might know, but it's not really outspoken in the family. But these are all reasons. And who has not experienced abuse? Now, as a woman, I mean, who hasn't? It's so common that it's more like what constitutes abuse, so usually I tell the women, well, was it with your consent or not? I mean, this is how you can somehow distinguish. And that often brings us
also emotional abuse matter, or it's you mean
absolutely.
I mean like a physical, like a emotional power and control, even like a, because I found out that even like a financial abuse leads to emotional abuse, and then it leads to power and control dynamic, and then sometimes it leads to the physical violence and intimacy and sexual, right? So for me, it's all kind of like linked, right?
Yeah, they are definitely linked. Probably physical or like sexual abuse has, I'd say, tend to have a bit more than only, well, the emotional abuse is already bad enough, but possibly because you also have the physical aspect. A woman who gets raped has, I think, is still more trauma in the body than if it's just, and that is already bad enough. So I don't want to minimize anything here. Now, I've worked with refugee women, for example, on the Greek island of Lesbos. The women there came either from Africa or from Afghanistan. And many of the women had terrible back injuries. Like some of them could barely walk or only on a cane, and they were destroyed. Like there was nothing glowing in it. The eyes were all dead. And there was one female osteopath and me. So I had some training from an osteopath. That's what I do. That helps me with basically the body work that I do. But we were the only two women, and you can't have a woman who is either from a very conservative country, who is completely veiled and covered up, or who was who had experienced severe abuse. You can't let her treat by a male therapist. It's just impossible with body work, right? You need to be touched in like very intimate areas. So we were the only people for the whole island. And Lesbos, I mean, it's like, I think it's the biggest refugee camp in Europe. So it was tough. And that whole Ghani area and the back area was just a whole mess. And I was thinking, actually, this is not for me. Like, a trained osteopath has to work on this, but there was no one else. So, you're just trying to do whatever you can in this kind of completely different environment. And I learned Farsi. So I wasn't there for that long, but the first thing I realized, like, the women, they were especially the Afghani women, coming from very also conservative backgrounds, completely covered. I can't just put them on a table and then it's like, okay, lie down and I work on your body. Like, they're just frozen from all this, like, what's going to happen. So I learned a bit of Farsi, and just by connecting with them and like, hey, how are you? I'm from Germany, I do this and that, and do you have pain? Where's the pain? And like, more or less pain, just using your hands and all kinds of tools to communicate. They started to smile, and that's when it was, okay, now I can start to work. Like, I had to get that connection first. And we worked a lot on the lower back pain, gynae issues, and there was just so much trauma. Like, especially African women, actually, was really, really, really bad. I often had to jump into the sea right after the session because it was just so much trauma, just to cleanse myself, because I'm quite used to working with trauma, but that environment was so intense. And even just reading the referral letter from Doctors Without Borders, that was already enough to mess me up. So I really, each time I had to prepare myself, okay, go in therapist mode. So, I don't take everything on, but that's that. Actually, some of my patients here in Singapore, they told me afterwards, like, yeah, your treatment will get different after you came back from Greece. I have also some training and a trauma center. What was it? Sorry, yoga is from Boston. Basically, it's a trauma yoga kind of therapy. I did a course in that, and that helped me a lot in like helping people connect with the body. And it's just experience. I think just having touched and felt so many different kind of uteri, plural of uterus. So it's just, you work on so many gynae areas, and it can be strange pain. I've even had, there is a nerve that can cause extreme kind of pain, the put and down nerve, and conventional medicine doesn't really have much for it. And literally, I just work with touch or not touch. It's a very sensitive area, so a lot of trauma work is consent, like never ever touching without not asking for permission. Like I have to make sure that the person gives me a clear yes, because some of the trauma might not be feeling they can say no, so they might say yes because they haven't learned to say no. So we work also with non-verbal signs and really making sure that person does want, or often when I feel resistance, I will work without touch, and that can be even more powerful than touching. So trauma is really, we need to create this environment where we the person feels safe. Only then we can start to work. Otherwise we can just mess someone up more, and of course we don't want that. But literally most women, let's put it that way, I've never had a woman on a treatment table who had no trauma in the uterus. That can be because they choose me as a therapist and they happen to have trauma. I don't know if all women have, but trauma gets also passed on from one generation to the next. One can be explained, yes. So one is actually from a physical, from a biological aspect, is when a woman is pregnant, if she's pregnant with a girl, the ovaries of the girl are already built while the mother's pregnant with her. Yeah. So sorry, I have to say the ovaries in like when she's, they are already built there. So if then the daughter gets pregnant, the ovaries were already built while she was in her mother's womb. So her daughter is automatically connected, basically not just to the mother but also to the grandmother. Because what we experience during pregnancy does get passed on. So we know this. There have been studies about trauma have shown that trauma gets passed on. But of course, for humans, because of the long lifespan, of course, it's difficult to do exact research on it. But we do know this, especially from Israel with the Holocaust situation there. So I do also work with people whose family were affected by that. And for example, if their parents already have anxiety because their parents experienced the Holocaust, maybe their child now with the lockdowns may experience germophobia, so extreme fear of germs, basically, or what's quite common now is eating disorders. So trauma, in the uterus, it's quite complex. It can go in so many different ways, but I would say the clearest ways to know that you have that is either that something happened either with you or your family, or you suspect there was some kind of abuse happening. Strange menstrual patterns, pain, it's difficult, you can't get pregnant, you don't feel good as a woman, the whole area, maybe you don't even feel anything, or intimacy is difficult. So these are all areas, there is a pretty good chance, and already for most women there is something. Some have more, some have less.
So one question that comes to my mind is like how to resolve it, is it like it's so complex, right? And it's like at the same time it's so common. So how to, I know that starting sessions with you and becoming aware of that, but then can they do something by themselves to continue kind of like a healing?
So depending on one is, whenever we do trauma work, we need to make sure that the person feels comfortable, safe, and steady and calm. So we need to get them there first. And this, for some people, might take quite some time. This might take sessions to even get there. Also, people can feel, hey, this is going to open things up. And not everyone is going to be open and ready to look at these things. So this is the framework we need to have before we can even start to work on trauma in the uterus. Now, if we have that, which means the person has a stable network, family, friends, maybe a couple of therapists, feel supported, they're eating well, they know what their resources are, they do regular exercise, they have maybe some hobbies, like some just to make sure that, they're stable. So when something happens, when things open up, they don't feel like they're dropping and they're falling and they're all alone. Like this is a no-go, we can't have that. So once we have that, for me, I work a lot through touch, or like remotely, because I work a lot on, how should I say, like when I touch actually a body, I see trauma, I feel it. So there are patterns of trauma in the body. And I work a lot from just working on the feet, like the overall general nervous system. And that helps you calm down the nervous system, because if the nervous system is haywire, which most people with chronic stress or a trauma background have, because the nervous system is in this either freeze mode or in this fight or flight mode. So they can't even calm down. You can't sit under a tree and relax, it's not going to work. Or you can't tell them meditate and feel all happy and breezy. It's just not going to work. So we need other strategies. That is through calming exercises. So what you can do is things like hatha yoga, not necessarily the fast one, because already your body is so full of adrenaline. Hatha yoga, yin yoga. But then again, tune in what feels right. In my opinion, dancing is great. Anything dancing that makes you move your pelvis, your hip. That can be something fast or sexy, like ragaton. It can be Indian classical dance. It can be a hula hoop. It can be, South Pacific hula dance. I mean, it can be bachata. It can be zouk, sensual. Just feel what feels right. Maybe not necessarily tango, because that's very stiff and strict, but anything that helps you flow. For some people it might even be like what is it called, either jazz or like very like uncommon, where you just movements basically. I usually suggest more like or that's what I also have experienced, and I've seen, like I dance, and I've seen the tremendous changes that how I felt in my body. That was quite an eye-opener actually, in terms of how I felt as a woman. So a lot can be also how you feel as a woman, connect with the women in your family, work on that image that you have of yourself as a woman. A lot when there's a trauma background, I've seen that women tend to be, especially when it goes to fertility. I've done everything already. I've done tick, 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 tick. I'm still not pregnant. Like the goal is, I need to get pregnant. Right? It's not working. Yeah. So this is often this very strong sense of control that is also a result of trauma. So we need to work around that one. Not to let go of control can be extremely scary. Again, that has to be done in a gentle, loving manner, so the person does not feel so much the sense for that need for the control. But we can work on that, the view on women, on herself. So we can do this through actually sessions where we just chat, where we talk. I do this also with like making the women draw certain, it's like exercises. I don't want to call it art therapy, but it goes a bit in that direction, where we draw ourselves, parts of the body, and then looking at what comes up there. This can be extremely healing as well. But again, this is not stuff for DIY. I mean, you do want to do this with someone, because there's a lot of stuff that can come up with. So I don't want to go in too many details here. You want to make sure you have someone by your side in whom you trust, where you feel comfortable and safe, because chances are things are going to come up, and there might be some pretty ugly stuff. You might have memories come back. When I work with people, often there might be strange dreams. And what's very interesting about I've heard many times after a session that a woman told me, I had discharge coming out after the session. So literally the body is physically clearing itself. Wow. So that's quite powerful.
That's amazing.
And also, I'm telling you, the body is amazing. So actually, I don't know why, when we look at gynecology, why we don't look more at trauma, because for me, the two, they are connected. We cannot even separate them. It just makes no sense. But this is my approach. So for me, gynecology, trauma work, fertility, it just all goes together. It's not just what we eat and the rest and the sleep we get. It's a lot of working on this trauma, and it's quite powerful, because once we let it go, I've seen people, the women just get pregnant. If trauma was the reason. Of course, if there are other reasons, we need to work on that, but often there is this trauma component.
Oh wow. Okay.
That was a lot.
Yeah, but I can see this is your element, right? This is like this is your thing.
Totally.
Well, now I want to go and see you lay down on the table and say, yes. It's like, tell me what's
and
happening.
it's it's even for women who maybe who have a daughter or who want to get pregnant and say, I don't want to pass this on to my daughter. I want to sort it out for myself first. Because often as children, we have to sort out our parents' rubbish, right? Whether we want to or not, but it ends up on our plate. So the sooner we deal with it, the better. But of course, it's not always the right time. So all of this has to be right, but it can be quite rewarding. So the process itself is not easy, it's not comfortable, it's painful, it's ugly, but it can be so liberating and rewarding. And often what I've seen is that even the relationships change, how the women are at work changes, how they look at themselves. All of a sudden, maybe they earn more money, or they make the step to a different career. They find really like fulfilling relationships. They can enjoy intimacy. So there is just so much liberation. Of course, if the desire was pregnant and she may get pregnant, of course I can't promise this, but there are so many things to win, but it does take that courage. That's why I cannot emphasize enough the support. The support is really, really important. Like if you don't feel supported, don't experiment by yourself, because you don't have the budget, and you think you can just read some YouTube videos and like.
How would you? What percentage of your clients or your patients are already they have some kind of knowledge about it, and what they are completely just like finding out everything from you?
I would say there is more like when I tell the women that, there is this big sense of like a sigh of relief, or a sense of yes, I think like I see that in myself, or I think I have something in that area to clear. Some women have done already a lot of work, so especially people who have done lots of body work, or who are already familiar with, say, abdominal massage, who do like a lot of this, like developing the divine feminine. That's more like on the alternative side. Like these women tend to already have done some work on it. But even so, it's how deep can you do this by yourself? So of course, anything that has to do with the feminine. The feminine is usually be gentle, flowing, not following like rigid concepts. So a typical career woman is going to have problems with that. Like that was me before in banking, very short hair and very, so develop the feminine side and encourage that how you feel. This is not about how much makeup you wear or how high your heels are. This is really how you feel as a woman. And as you start to work more on that, or respecting your menstrual cycle, connecting with your body, feeling what feels right, what does not feel right. These are all things, the women can basically do. Okay.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Like I have no other questions. I just want to know your availability. So and when I can come for a session. So tell me, how do people get in touch with you? How can you start working with them online first and then in person?
Yes.
Can you do some of this work like remotely, fully 100%?
Yes.
Or how is that?
Yeah. So well, you can reach out to me on panakaya.com. You can book your sessions there. You can also book for a free call if you want to discuss more. I'm on social media, Facebook, Instagram. So that's all Panakaya. It's nice to have usually a chat first before you come for a session, just to see whether really it resonates, or maybe you have some questions about your individual situation. So that's always nice to clarify that one first. On my approach now, I mean, here people know already a little bit more about it. I can do a lot of work remotely, because in the sessions, quite a fair bit is actually we talk about like One is usually I start with an intake, medical history, but a lot is like, what's your family story? What's the role of a woman in your family? How do you feel as a woman? So a lot comes to D. So there's a lot of soul searching, lots of journaling. So this is usually, it takes some time. So if you just want to come for 1 or 2 sessions, honestly, if really you want to let go, like, of course it can happen, you know, you might get pregnant and all this, like that's more the physical, like in-person sessions, but really if there's a lot of stuff, we need more time. We work on that, and then the exercises I make you do, like with the drawings and all this, you will do this at home anyway. So there's a lot of things we can do remotely, and even with the sessions, there's a fair bit we can do, and it may not be 100% the same as an in-person session, like with the physical touch, but you know, it's still better than not doing it. So it's always difficult for me to say in advance, like what's going to happen and how long it takes, and because everyone is unique, everyone is different. But yeah, still we like all the calming of the nervous system and all, we can all do this remotely.
Okay, beautiful. Then I hope more and more women will actually really reach out and take care of themselves.
I think it's just nice to support each other as women, and I think every woman deserves to feel like a goddess, and to feel great and be comfortable in her body, and just embrace being a woman. For me, that's like I think really every woman should be able to enjoy this, and it always makes me very sad when women cannot experience just because of what happened to them, or how like the beliefs, the values that they grew up with. So let's change it.
Yes, let's change that. Thank you so much for sharing all these informations. It was wonderful. And I'll see you soon in the next video, next chat. And thank you.
Thank you.